Tom, you said if I won the bet, I could wear the hat. I could have this hat. You said if I got 150 subscribers that I could wear the hat during my videos. What? 1,500 subscribers? Hey, it's Chris from Legion Games. Hopefully everything should be a lot better tonight. I'm still in quarantine, so there's that. But we're going to start with the board game news roundup this week. There's a little bit of everything, nothing really huge, but lots of things that have just sort of caught my eye. And so that's what I'm going to talk about, besides the obvious Kickstarters that are going on and ending and all that sort of stuff. So we'll just speak a little bit more in general, just the roundabout stuff that's happening around the internets, and we'll just kind of go from there. So if you like anything, if you don't like anything, great, let me know. If there's anything newsworthy, shoot it my way. I'm happy to give an opinion on it. Okay, let's take a look. So first up, this is sort of board game-esque, board game adjacent, if you will, tabletop adjacent. Backerkit and CrowdOx are joining. These were basically the number one and number two for a long time pledge managers out there for the crowdfunding scene. So this is pretty big news, but I think it's going to fly under a lot of people's radar. Why is this a big deal? Because of the already mentioned prior videos in regards to GameFound. I have to feel like this is their response, knowing there's a potential giant looming in the future and they're trying to head it off at the pass. It sort of makes me think about, I guess to put it in different terms, Verizon versus AT&T, and then all of a sudden Verizon just kept growing and AT&T and Sprint sort of joined forces in that sense. That's what this sort of feels like to me, completely unrelated metaphor. But I think especially with GameFound launching their own crowdfunding, I think they're hoping to siphon a large portion of the larger Kickstarter designers and users, and tabletop gaming does a very large percentage of Kickstarter's business. They have sort of been the default. I think the sort of, you think of one, you think of the other for a long time, and GameFound has very quickly gotten a good corner of the market. And I think they're going to continue to have a good corner of the market on Kickstarter, and then just taking it to their own crowdfunding isolates them even further to a degree that Backerkit and CrowdOx may not be able to recover. And so I think you're trying to see a larger market share with the combination of the two. And it'll be interesting to see how that actually changes their policy. Now, they talk about the fact that they're not changing anything if you've signed up with one, and there's no disruption to either project that you've taken in the past. If you're on CrowdX or Backerkit right now, we're going to continue to support you, blah, 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 blah. The press release on both of these is very similar. Words are very similar. There's a few things like the years here and how many they helped, and there's a few things like that, but it's very non-specific about what the changes are going to actually be. And so how they're going to respond to GameFound, I think, should be of interest to all of us as backers, but also all of the creators or soon-to-be or wanna-be creators out there. So next up is actually, again, it's sort of board game adjacent. It is actually more of a miniature, and you can see sort of the picture here that is of this campaign launching in about 5 days from when I'm recording this, less by the time this gets posted on November 17. It is the death goddess Izanami. I'm probably mispronouncing that. It's the Japanese queen of the underworld, and this is a massive miniature. Now, why am I talking about this? It's because it's by the same people out of Italy that are doing sort of the fly under the radar yet still huge hyped Sankokushin dungeon crawler-esque campaign, massive RPG type miniature based game, probably launching sometime in the first quarter, maybe beginning of second quarter of 2021. These are the guys over at Axis Mundi. Now, This is sort of to hype things up. This is sort of, it reminds me of KDM-esque, Kingdom Death Monster, if you will, where they hyped a lot of the miniatures and then they finally dove into the tabletop scene heavier with the actual game itself later. And that's what they're doing with this. It just really feels like. And why is it important? Because actually down here at the bottom, I'm going to skip way down to the bottom, that they are including a bonus for anyone who backs it now. You're getting this bonus encounter deck because she is an enemy that, or something, I'm not sure totally an enemy, but she has an encounter in the game itself already planned. And this is an alternative model, then the model is going to be used there. This model is just absolutely massive. But they also note that you're able to get it as a free add-on here, but it's going to be a paid add-on during the campaign. And you're like, okay, well, people like me were like, oh, let's see. You know what? Maybe I'll just back it for, a little bit and I'll get it free if it's worth it. I mean, this model is huge. It's a little gratuitous from my standpoint. So I don't have any interest in it. I'm not a modeler. I don't put models together. I can't do that. I haven't done it before. So I can't speak much to the quality, but everything I've heard about the company in general is that they do put out really good models. And the people online are clamoring at the fact that the detail and the pieces and being able to paint it, and it just looks amazing. What you're getting is an art print as well as the model, and it is 140 millimeters high. So why am I also talking about this? And why am I going to be not backing it at this point? Because it's 109 euros for this miniature. This is 140 millimeters or 5.5 inches tall for those of us that don't use the metric. I'm leaving that one alone. And you get to 2 art prints, but that is massive. 109 euros? Whew, I'm out. So anyway, it'll be interesting to see because hopefully they'll have more details in this campaign, however long it is or however short it is, talking about the game more itself, or at least we'll get this out of the way so that those of us who are heavily waiting for the game will get more information about the game then, and we'll just be past it from this side of things. Either way, I'm going to follow it. I'm going to keep a close eye on it. I won't be backing at this price point, which means I won't be getting the free deck, but I'm guaranteed that the deck probably as an add-on alone is probably going to be cheaper later. So yes, just something to be aware of that's launching next week. So this is the newest release from the upcoming Descent Legends of the Dark, Descent 3.0 essentially from FFG that they announced earlier this month, end of last month, I can't remember. In the pandemic, everything blurs together. But it's just an absolutely massive model, and it looks great. The detail looks tremendous on it, and I'm not a miniature guy, as I've said in the past. I think painting this would be ridiculously hard, but I think it looks beautiful, and this is probably the reason why the MSRP is about $200. You're paying 175, I think, just to get it. And if there's more of this, that's why it's the price it is. So we'll see what comes of it more, but I'm going to keep an eye on it. I can't say whether or not I'm going to buy it at this point. Just knowing everything else, campaign, legacy, Ask Dungeon Crawl-esque that I already either have on the way or that's already upcoming besides that. I think it's one of those that I don't think there's any exclusives, thankfully, that you're going to miss via a crowdfunding method because they're retail. So I think you can wait until the reviews come out to get an opinion on it and see whether or not it's for you. And invariably, there are going to be other people that are going to buy it. So this might be one that you get on the secondary market for, let's say miniature market is selling it for 150 or 160, whatever they're selling it for. You could probably get it for, 25% below that, maybe, if you're lucky, depending on the people that buy it and find out it's not for them, even though they bought it on pre-order. So another reason not to pre-order just from that side of things. So I'm scrolling along Twitter the other day, and if you know anything about this channel, I have been a big proponent of the indie Japanese type of games that they do. And this popped up. It's the third game in the Kaiju on the Earth series. Ygdrasus is how I'm guessing. There's some sort of pronunciation. It is on Makuake, which is the Japanese version of the crowdfunding Kickstarter Indiegogo-esque type of board game website or crowdfunding website in general. I know I slaughtered that name. I'm sorry. But why is it worth talking about, and why is it interesting to me? Well, let's take a look at the other two. Like I said, the Kaiju. I mean, Kaiju is Japanese monster. So here is the first one. It's called Volcanus. So you can see, I mean, it's more of your Godzilla stomping-esque game. And then you have here Leviath, which was more of a it was more of a hidden role, hidden deduction game in terms of other American English version games like Spectre Ops. Um, so you can kind of see just this massive game. The problem is it's all Japanese and it's all in Japanese, so it's heavy language, and so neither of these have made it over, but it absolutely looks just like a lot of fun. And Volcanus, I think, got a little bit more mixed reviews from the few comments I can translate with Google Translate on Board Game Geek. This one, Leviath, isn't even in Board Game Geek at all. And this third one, well, I'm chuckling because you're about to see why I'm chuckling exactly. And it appears they say support for the project. The playtime is 1 day. You've done more than a day of playtime, right, on a game? And I mean, it's raised over 15 million yen right now, which doesn't sound like a lot. And frankly speaking, on Kickstarter Indiegogo terms, it's not. It's only about 150, just under 150, 140-ish thousand US dollars. But in terms of the Japanese crowdfunding, that's massive. That is absolutely massive. It's got over a month left, and the playtime is a day. I mean, can you imagine this? It covers the entire Earth with all the power of each nation. It's an extended reproduction strategy war game, is how it's getting translated. And this monster is actually, a model that you can use and that you build. It's mankind versus a world tree. I love it. I love it. You can't make this stuff up. And see, right here even, playtime, 1 day, super authentic, heavy game. And let's just talk about it. It looks beautiful. I wish half of my boxes of my games had art that great. Here you can see this is the tower. This is the monster, I think. So you can see the tower that you're using a dice tower as the main body. And just tons, they're talking about all the components. Just absolutely, absolutely terrific. So anyway, I'll throw the link down below and you can check it out if you want for yourself. But I think it's worth just talking about because there's other stuff out there beyond our scene that people need to be aware of, and people need to realize that so much is good that we might not even never know about unless we're willing to open our eyes and open our ears. So that's why I like highlighting stuff like this. And I would love to see an English version of all three of these. I'm not sure that'll ever happen though. Japanime Games, I'm looking at you. Looking at you guys. Now, last but not least in this section of things, since we're talking about miniatures and we're talking about massive productions, let's go to CMON. I mean, right? Good segue. So CMON here, they just announced that they are basically doing a multi-game Kickstarter as their next Kickstarter because it was never really announced at the end of their most recent, I believe it was Massive Darkness 2, what the next one was going to be. And they always sort of had this habit of announcing at the very last day or the last update or the day after the finish of what their next project was going to be. And it was sort of radio silence. And it looks like now that they have the IP, and we've known about the Scooby Doo one for a while. It's been on Board Game Geek for probably maybe like 4 to 6 months. But these other two, the Looney Tunes and the Teen Titans Go, which is a surprisingly underrated IP and interest base, they're going to do a multi-game Kickstarter all in one. So they're going to take all three of these games. You're going to get miniatures that are pre-painted. You can sort of see on the Teen Titans Go right here and the Looney Tunes box that they're going to be pre-painted miniatures, and they're going to call it their animation collection. So what this looks like to me is their version of the Funkoverse. They even talk about right here, they're using their CMON Mayhem system rules set. And the two games at least mentioned here, the Looney Tunes and the Teen Titans Go, are very much like the Funkoverse games, where you're basically attacking each other, trying to be the last one standing, modified to fit those settings, whether you're Elmer Fudd or you're a Teen Titan like Raven. Scooby Doo being different, they talk about you're attempting to trap and capture the monster that's terrorizing the town. Now, I have to wonder how different that'll be from Betrayal, at Mystery Manor, or Betrayal at Mystery Mansion, I mean, that just came out, the retheme of Betrayal at House on the Hill. Because that game is relatively recent, has a ton of scenarios, and doesn't have miniatures, but it comes and it encapsulates the theme of Scooby Doo very well already. So how is this going to be different? And you have to know, putting this out there, having that IP, it's going to be immediately compared to that by everybody. So what are you going to do that's going to be different apart from the miniatures? Because miniatures are not going to carry this at retail. Now it's on Kickstarter, and you can bundle 1, 2, or 3 games at Kickstarter discounted prices, they say, but they're also going to offer daily unlocks and special surprises. So I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I'm a sucker for the Scooby Doo. My kids love it. We're starting to play the Betrayal game already. My kids aren't really into Looney Tunes. Looney Tunes is sort of my generation. Teen Titans Go is right between my generation and them. And there's a lot of player expansion, more so in the Teen Titan and Looney Tunes. And I'm not sure what you're going to do with Scooby Doo, if you're going to add more scenarios or what. But neither of those scream I need bulk of them either. So I'm very intrigued. They don't say a date at all for this, just that it's going to be the next campaign. I would be shocked if it's not before the end of the year, because they usually do 6 weeks to 2 months between campaigns. But knowing where the production is on a lot of their other campaigns, they may opt for just waiting until the new year. So I wouldn't be surprised either way. Speaking of crowdfunding, though, look who's back. Harry Potter, Catch the Snitch, from the guys over at Night. They did exactly what I thought they were going to do. They drastically cut that funding goal, and they cut the price too, which really makes me even less sure. Even though the price point is a little bit less in terms of the pledges, if it was that high to begin with, and now you tell me the pledge is that much less, it makes me wonder if it needed to be anywhere near that, or if it needs to be anywhere near this. So let's take a minute here and just compare having both campaigns up side by side. So this is the Academic League pledge, the core blocks and the stretch goals with the unlockables. It's 101 bucks or 85 euros. So we go over to this one, the previous one, it's 100 euros, already a 15 euro reduction, over $20 reduction. The All-Star pledge down here is 150, and the all-in is 300. So let's see, the All-Star pledge here is 130, and that includes the star players, the World Cup, and the stretch goals. So that is the exact same there. So that's 20 euro difference right there. It just makes me wonder, did it need to be that high? Now, the other thing you have to remember with Night models, and the other thing, even though you're paying this massive premium, I'm not sure if models are first or game is first in this situation. You're getting stuff, and they're hitting stretch goals, but I don't know. I would stay away from this. I would say the retail, if the retail is good, it'll keep on funding. They'll keep on being able to expand it at retail. And I'm not sure it's worth backing right now at that price. I just can't see that price point is really worth it, especially before shipping, especially with the concerns of the last Harry Potter game that they had, which was, again, more miniatures first and games sort of second. So backer beware. A few other side notes on the news and notables this week. I just saw today, it was just announced that early in 2021, you're going to be seeing a Kickstarter for another Batman board game. This time it's actually going to be from Cryptozoic, and it's Batman The Dark Knight Returns, presumably based off of the previous IP exactly from the same title. Now, how does Cryptozoic have it, and what are they going to do with it? And why is it going to be on Kickstarter? Now, they recently put out a couple games with Batman in the title and in the IP, mostly for the DC Comics deck builder, but this is sort of a departure from a lot of, again, with Batman, the possibilities are sort of endless, the iterations are numerous. I mean, there are enough iterations of this to go around. I just can't figure how they're going to make this unique, and how they're going to make it something that the mass market is going to want from a crowdfunding standpoint that has not already been done. We've seen Gotham City Chronicles with the skirmish melee, tons of characters. There is the retail version of it, Batman, the animated series Gotham City Under Siege, where they've put out a couple expansions for that. I just don't know how this is going to stand on its own 2 feet, different from what's out there already. And I can't help but think they're just going to be relying on the IP alone. Cryptozoic has not impressed me or been a personal favorite of mine in terms of things that they have put out. I have not found myself enjoying a lot of their games. So I'm not sure what this is going to look like and what it's going to entail. And the question is, why is Cryptozoic using Kickstarter in the first place when you would think between the IP and the fact that they are a very well-established retail company to begin with, they don't really need it. Then again, as people have said, Kickstarter isn't really for the people that need it anymore. It's for a safe bet to get money that you're not just risking your own financial state of being to fund a game or to mass produce a game that may not sell or sit on shelves and go in the red just from that side of things. Now, I'm going to take a side tangent here just for a second. I think this is going to be a future video in and of itself about the deluxification of games going on in the future. But in particular, I'm going to highlight tonight Tidal Blades Heroes of the Reef, which is just getting delivered to a lot of backers right now. If you're not familiar with this funded in, I believe, the end of 2018. It raised over $750,000. It's sort of a twist on the worker placement, dice placement, card drafting, mitigation type of game with a very unique theme. But it was also one of those games that they really blinged out. They really shoved a lot of deluxifications, the game trays that are apparently all the rage now, along with a lot of upgraded materials and just upgraded components, materials, miniatures, artwork, art book, all of that sort of wrapped into this deluxe pledge. Now they sold the retail pledge, switching over to the Kickstarter page for a second, as a $59 pledge, which with the shipping on top of that is probably not a very good deal because all of the stretch goals are going to be included in the retail edition, whether you got it on the Kickstarter or not. And the deluxe pledge was $89 plus shipping. And so I've seen pictures popping up all over social media talking about that. And going back here, $89 plus shipping, you're looking at probably $110. And I've been subscribed because this game has always been on my radar. I like a little bit of dice placement, but I've never sold on the worker placement. So a lot of these that fall into that category for me are a try before I buy, just due to the complexity and the sheer nature of how myself and my biases work. I am more tactical than strategic. And so a lot of those games just do not click well with me. And the interesting thing is, since I've been subscribed to the page here on Board Game Geek, is I've been watching a lot of these come up for sale. And you can kind of see even pre-order miniature market's $48. So if someone's buying the retail, as I mentioned, the retail pledge was $59. It's $11 less than that. If you buy a used copy of the retail from someone, you're going to be paying probably in the 30s, plus or minus shipping, or around there if you trade for trade value. So the retail version definitely didn't hold up, and that's one of the things I think I need to talk about in this video of deluxification and our hobby as a whole. But going down here a little bit further, you can see, okay, there are 38 copies for sale already. And that's pretty impressive. 38 copies already, with it being delivered basically within the last 2 weeks. Now, is that a large portion of the total backers as a whole that were getting deluxe versions? No, because there was 6,000 people. So between that and the ones sold, I think it's just over 50 or so right now that are just on Board Game Geek. I've seen, probably half a dozen to a dozen pop up on Facebook as well. So, I mean, if you say there's 60 total, so you're looking at about 1% of people trying to get rid of it. Now, is that a big deal? No. But I think it speaks to a trend in Kickstarter that I myself have tried unsuccessfully at times to get out of is buying something because it's pretty, buying something because it's deluxe, and then trying to flip it after I got it. And you can already see this $75 one. You're like, oh, that's a good deal. The reason that one's still there is that's the retail version. Someone bought the retail version and they're selling it for $75, which you can get on, Miniature Market, as you saw, for $48 above. Now you can see the one here that I'm surprised is still here is the $100 one, because there were two others that have sold for that are about the same. The rest of these have all sold for not appreciably more. Anything, everything from 150 to $98. So again, I guess the take home here is buyer beware about going in for some of these for pure value for a deluxification version. And you can get burned really easily if the game is not well reviewed or well thought of. It doesn't matter what the perceived value is in the first place, is if it's not a great game, it doesn't matter how deluxe or how expensive it is, you're gonna lose money on it. That happened to me on a game called Monsterlands. I got the wooden version and I didn't like it, and it wasn't panned by everybody as being a great game. It's a relatively good game, but it was not exceeding expectations, and so I lost significant money on a trade that I ended up getting rid of it for. So I hesitate to put everything in value terms in some of my other videos when I talk about Kickstarter, because I believe that you just can't base things off of a lot. I just believe that you can't always base it off of value alone. I'm getting X miniatures, and so the miniatures are only $1 per, and so that's a really good deal. Well, that's what I thought in Myth Journeyman, right? Whoops, look how that turned out. So just something, a food for thought, that it seems to be something I see pop up a lot in discussions, myself included, because I think it's a useful tool, but I would not take it as the end all be all. So speaking of Myth, the whole fiasco that was behind them, it's now owned by Ulysses Spiel out of Europe. And they've announced a new Myth game, Myth Dawn of Heroes, taking the cooperative miniatures-based tactic game with card-driven play where you're fighting the darkness, where the darkness is, the game itself you're fighting against. And they're announced a new game, and there's not much detail known. Apparently you're going to be able to use some of the miniatures and stuff from the previous games, which backers like myself are still waiting for a lot of the miniatures from Myth Journeyman, which Ulysses has promised to fulfill. But there's not much known about this, and I think this has the reputation now, sort of like Steamforged Games has with Bardsung. I think that's why you're seeing a lower return, and that would be my fear with this, that their reputation, until they can prove that they have gotten over the hump of the mistakes of the past, even if they were not their own mistakes, it's going to hamper them on market unless you have a plethora of information out there. And as much as I pan this sometimes, this is the type of game that is going to need somebody like a Quackalope, somebody like a Tom Vassal or a Rado to have a copy of beforehand, to pan it, to explain it, to go into more detail about what is making it unique and what is making it good and why you should invest it in the first place. Because otherwise, I think you could be looking at something very low end. I think just based on what I have to feel like the internal expectations on Steamforged Games may have been, that Bardsong is probably underperforming. But I think it's because they haven't gotten over that hump yet of whether or not it's worth it. And I see those discussions pop up everywhere. When you just hear their name, people just immediately go, bleh. And that's sort of the same thing with Myth. Even though it's not fully warranted, it is still leaving a bad taste in people's mouths years down the line. And that's why, as I'm sure your parents have told you, your reputation sometimes is what you have and how you are, and it's going to go with you long past when it should. And that's true in real life, in the the workplace. That's also true in the hobby scene. And I think both of these companies and IPs are being affected by that and will continue to be affected by that, both positively and negatively. Am I excited by it? I mean, I love the idea of it. I love the artwork of it. I think it brings something unique with the Darkness deck and how it interacts with the heroes in a cooperative campaign sense. But I think it's going to get the buyer beware sort of label, especially from someone like me, where you might be better off going $1 in and seeing what happens 6 months post campaign, if assuming it's crowdfunded, to see where sort of things are ending up and whether or not it's something you feel like is worth it. So that's it for the news and notables tonight. I just want to thank you guys. Shoot me a comment. Let me know if I'm talking about interesting stuff or completely non-interesting stuff. Um, I'm going to be trying to do something more variable than everyone else out there. I had this realization earlier tonight that I'm done trying to emulate what other people are doing. I'm going to do my own thing, for better or for worse, and I'm going to put it out there, and I'm going to make it unique. I'm going to own it, and we'll just go from there. So it's going to be what it's going to be. Like, comment, subscribe as you will. I'm going to continue to do this. Hopefully the audio is much better now that I adjusted things, and we'll just go from there. So as always, it's been a pleasure. Stay classy. I'll see you next time.